Good morning and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. I'm Brendan Rendo, the Homes in Orlando team. We're joined by always by Joseph Dion of Aptly Home Loan. So, of course, big news is Jerome came out yesterday and blew a lot of smoke. Oh, I'm sorry.
He begrudgingly, said like what we knew was going to happen, but kind of wasn't going to happen. But now it's going to play off of both sides, talk from both sides of the spectrum. Like he's having fun. I think Jerome's just having fun at this point.
I think he is too. I think he knows he's done. So, hey, let me talk out, let me screw everybody up. I'm just going to, next couple of months, I'm going to have them going all kinds of directions. So, well, we're going to get into that and some other news items here. So thank you. And again, welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Oh man, it's what everybody knew was going to happen, right?
It was predicted, right? Like it's crazy. We went from like what 30% chance to 90% chance in 2 months.
Yep.
Like,
and then you really had to. I sat and actually listened to it a couple times because it's like, wait a minute, he said this, but then he said this, and he's doing this, but he said he was going to do this. Wait a minute. Well, I'm a little confused here. What are you saying? Jerome, what are you saying? And to me, it basically came down to this: is they came out actually dissentful, which was interesting, 9-3, right? Mm-hmm. And one who's gunning for the next chairmanship, vote for a 50% rate cut. But then you actually had two who wanted to keep it as is.
Yeah. What was it? Schmidt and Goolsby?
Yeah.
Wanted a pot. And it's very interesting to see a little bit of that. To like you usually see, I feel like the Fed is usually a little bit more in line with each other.
Yes.
And you don't see this divided. And I think we're going to get a little bit more dividedness now because we know that Powell's on his way out. We know that there's another. So, mm-hmm. Would Moran, I don't know if I'm saying his last name correct, Miran, would he have been so dovish on the 50 cut, wanting that if he wasn't pandering for the seat?
No, he wouldn't have. No, he wouldn't have. Just plain and simple. He wouldn't have. And it's interesting because the names are starting to be tossed out there a little bit. The head of the economic council was this Kevin Hassett, was kind of floated out there. Don't think it went over too well.
No,
because his name's kind of been retracted, pulled back. So I don't think he went over too well. Because I think a lot of people felt he's just totally in Trump's back pocket, and whatever Trump wanted, he would do.
Yeah.
So, and people want, quote, independence. Well,
yep.
Yeah, sure. Okay. But looking at it, where they're projecting for 2026, I think has a lot to show what we're possibly looking at in the housing market, because they're neutral. He came out and they said their neutral target is 3.4%, which means we're only a quarter point cut away from that.
Yeah.
So when we, one thing we were looking at is when you go back and you look historically, this goes back to a little past 2020, and you look at where the Fed rate is and where mortgage rates are. We've talked about this in the past. It normally averages about 1.5, but we've been sitting a little bit higher than that. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting maybe about 2.25 right now. So there is a little bit of room in there to tighten that gap overall.
But I definitely, it's going to take some stability in this. I think right now we're not going to see, if we see a lot of uncertainty, we could see it spread back out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to need some more stability in the markets across many areas to create some predictability before we see it start to tighten back up.
Yep. But it gives us a good gauge, I think, is what's nice. It gives us a good gauge. And for all these, all these people who are out there, oh, the rates are going to drop, rates are going to drop. No, they're not. They're not. History should teach you a lesson. And this is what I think it's teaching us now is, hey, we're going to have pretty steady rates over the next year, which is what we want. We don't. This year has been kind of tough because one minute we were 7, 7.25. Next minute we were 6. Next minute we were back up to 6.875.
Yep.
I mean, they really kind of just shot all over the place. And you had mentioned is like that unpredictability raises a lot of uncertainty in the housing market. And what we really need to see is like you said, is that stability again. Is, hey, we may range a quarter point up, quarter point down, but pretty much overall, and that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. I'm seeing all kinds of projections, which I think maybe that's projections for next year, and people I think are getting a little rosier than they should be.
Maybe, yeah. I think we have the potential for a better year than this year. Especially if we stay flat, like if we stay right around where we are, a little bit better, like it's going to be naturally, it's going to be. But there's so many variables right now. Like we're seeing the reason why, if you take a little bit of where, Powell was like, in his comments, like, he really like what I noticed on is he just wasn't as hawkish as he usually is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He talked, he talked about, job gains are overstated. Inflation is coming down, but still elevated, right? Like, so he like, the commentation was kind of like, all right, like, well, yeah, like everything's a little bit worse than what we've kind of been saying.
Yeah.
And
That was one of the ones that hit me, and I caught that is, they're saying there's 40,000 new jobs created, and he says they believe they're off by 60,000, which means we've actually had job losses.
Until next month, he comes back and said, we had 100 gains.
Yeah. That you're sitting there going, okay, then why don't you report the real number? If you think it's this, why wouldn't you report this and not say this?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get. And then, of course, we've stopped with the quantitative tightening, and we're going to start buying some treasuries again, printing money, which, of course, ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying, well, our goal to get down to 2%, but there's a strong upside that inflation can respike. Well, then why are you going to be buying treasuries and creating money out of thin air?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be doing 40 billion for until at least April, and they're blaming it all on tax season. They need the liquidity for tax season. And I'm like, okay, to refill your repo, but you've totally depleted the reverse repo. That's gone. That trillions of dollars is gone. All that tells me is they feel that the banks are unstable, that there's a liquidity crisis in the banks. If you've got to increase repo reserves, it means the banks are hitting it harder to meet their overnight requirements. So there's a liquidity problem.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of underlying things that just kind of, like, I mean, growth, he's saying this year is 1.7, next year 2 point, little extra growth in there, which is always good. But there was just so many things that just, to me, just, contradicted in so many ways. And the market really just kind of stalled out. I mean, when we look at it, the Treasury, the T-bill, the 10-year T really didn't move anywhere. It came down We were at what, 4.18, came down to 4.1. We're back up a little bit this morning, back up to 4.12. So we we didn't see that big drop that we had seen, in the previous months where they cut, and then the rebound.
Yeah. It definitely, what I've noticed, we're very trend based right now. Like when I look at some of the charts that I utilize, we're sitting like kind of what we did, is we're right, like today we're right in between support and resistance. That's where we're hanging out, and it's getting tighter and tighter. So that means we're going to see a breakout potentially one way or the other.
Yep.
Yesterday we were above resistance, and so the news kind of pushed us underneath, which is great. But then the question is like, will we continue? Because I think my concern is like we've been trending on trying to break through that resistance on the 10-year T, which is not good for mortgage rates.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where we go and where we head.
Yep. Yeah. And my concern is that with them purchasing and the amount of treasuries that need to be produced in the next year, they're guesstimating dollars deficit for next year, is you're naturally that's going to push up the interest rates because people have less confidence in the U.S. government that we're going to continue at this level to be able to pay the interest payments on these loans. I mean, we're seeing it in Japan. Japan's rates have shot through the roof in the past 6 months, and that wonderful carry trade, Japanese Treasury carry trade, is pretty much been dissolved because there's the margins that were there are no longer there. But they're in the same situation as they're looking at doing this huge economic program to get things going in Japan, but they've got to create all these bonds to do it, create more and more and more debt. And that's one of the biggest things I'm just seeing here, and to me it's concerning is because we have just been consistently on this upward trend of debt in the United States, both mortgage because of home price increases, but the credit card debt has continued to increase. I believe we're up to like $1.23 trillion of credit card debt now. I think it was in June or July we reported that we finally broke the $1 trillion mark. So we've added $250 billion of credit card debt in less than 6 months. That's fast.
That's last minute.
That's really fast. So those are the concerns I have, and it's just I'm really hoping that we stay consistent, that we can hold in that 4% range, maybe a little bit higher. Hope maybe take a couple months and drop down below, and keep, I think if we just like you said, stay steady at that 6% range, that it will help the overall market. I think there's a lot of buyers. There was a report out today that 88% of the buyers who were pre-approved are planning to buy next year.
Yeah.
If that's true, that could be fantastic.
I agree.
It could be really good. And if you're a buyer, I think that reassures you, like, hey, I know what numbers I can work off of to make everything work. I mean, I've got a listing right now that we've been on the market for 5 days and we got multiple offers on it. It was a house that, extremely well taken care of. There's no deferred maintenance on it whatsoever. We priced it right. And over the weekend, I probably had 30 families through. And last night we got multiple offers on it. And in 5 days, which is wonderful when you look at what's happened generally with the market, which is stagnant. Listings become stagnant because they've been on the market for so long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we get into our Orlando numbers today, we see it. We're very stagnant, very nothing, no highs, no lows, just really just kind of, flat across the board. 417 sales, which is good. End of the month, I was hoping maybe a little bit higher. Would love to see, 450, 475, but I'll take 417 any
Okay.
day, any day of the week. We actually had a little bit of inventory increase, which I found interesting because the end of the month we had one of the highest rates of expired and cancellations this year. So people are getting ready. Usually December you don't see as many new listings, but hey, we'll take them. Months of inventory, we're sitting about 4.7. Original to list, we're right on that national average of about $25,000, sitting at 27. So Orlando's fallen right into that national average of what the average negotiated discount is.
Yep.
The high end, of course, you're getting a little bit higher, but this number's staying steady. The original list of sales price that we look at every week, sitting in that 92% range. So it's been a slow, consistent stream of housing sales for Orlando. Our average days on market, we jumped a little bit to 80, but you kind of expect that this time of year, especially with the holiday, Thanksgiving that we just had. And then here it is, when you look at it graphically, weekly sales, you can see it's really kind of 1 week up, 1 week down, 1 week up, 1 week down. Slow and steady wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is something I looked at this morning because we've seen the news of the active foreclosures picking up. So here in Orlando, we are picking up in the active foreclosures. We're actually up to roughly 85. So that is starting to pick up. And what you're seeing is, again, these are mostly homes that have been bought within the past 3 to 5 years where we've lost some value on the houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is what's interesting to see is we had roughly 218 withdrawn, but we still had a positive number of new listings, which is excellent. So we actually had more people putting their houses on the market than we did withdrawn, which that's good to see. And it's really not a bad time of year to put your house on the market. I've always had very consistent Decembers because a lot of people want to get in before the end of the year. You know this. They all want to get in and make sure that they can continue that homestead for the taxes because it does make a huge difference overall in their payment. So we see a lot of people like, okay, let's go ahead. Let's do what we can to get this done before the end of the year. Then in the condo markets, condos again, very steady, very consistent, sitting at that, roughly 100 mark per week, 9.5 months worth of inventory, 95 days on the market, again, staying right around that 92% overall, original list to sales price percentage. So it hasn't been a great year, sales number wise, but it's been a very consistent year, sales number wise. So, and I would love to see that pick up next year. And I think a lot of that pressure that we've seen, our rate's going to cut, everybody like, oh, the Fed's going to cut, more. And it's like, okay, guys, next year we may get one. Rates should sit in this window. Fannie Mae said, 6.23. I think NAR said, 6. They're always a little more optimistic than Fannie. Zillow, I think, had, 6.25, something like that. So we're there. Now it's just time to, okay, let's get off the sidelines and let's start, let's move forward and let's start looking at some homes. And what I would suggest to buyers right now is, while it's slow, jump,
No.
because we will get a spring surge. We're going to get a spring surge, which usually here in Orlando starts end of February, beginning of March.
Yeah.
Right. Jump now because you've got less competition. Less competition means better pricing, means easier negotiations. That's my recommendation to them right now.
Yeah. I think you hit on the dot right there. Is like, we're seeing everything play out. We know what we're looking at. And yeah, like if you're sitting there going, okay, we're ready, this might be the opportunity, because, you might be able, like, we think rates aren't going to really get too much more improvement from where they are. But right now you're able to negotiate a lot of incentives as a buyer. So if you get that incentive, you're going to sell at concessions. Like, you could potentially buy down the rate, or you can use it to pay down, bring less to closing and so forth. Like, if the market gets more attractive and we get more buy, it's going to flip. It'll go back to, maybe, I don't think we'll go to a full seller market, but a more neutral, to where sellers aren't willing to have to give up as much.
Yep.
And I think once that happens, the opportunity will, it'll still be a great time. But, if rates are 0.25% better, but you can't get $20,000 in concessions on that $500,000 home, or $600,000 or $700,000 home, like, did you really win? Like, was that, $75 less a month? Like, is that really worth the wait? Like, I don't know. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. I'd rather negotiate now when I know I'm at an advantage over my competition. Because when you look at the numbers of people viewing homes, it's down.
Yep.
So it's buyers, you've got it. You've got it right now. Take it, go for it. You'll be glad you did. You really will.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you all for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please like, subscribe, and join us every Thursday here on the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Thanks again, Joe. We will see you next week.
See you next week.